when we go to communities that we consider at risk, they're often perceived with mistrust early on because in some way, shape, or form, the community in which we're engaged, they don't actually know what the motive is. Why would these smart, talented kids come into my neighborhood and want to do something with me, not for me?
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen in business today. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelley, and we are in Miami today at the Emerge Americas Conference. So we're very excited to be here with University of Miami, and also thanks to Venture Cafe Miami for making all this happen. We have some very special guests today. So today we're talking about the Hyperion Council at University of Miami. So we have EllenMarie McPhillip with us, and we also have two students from University of Miami back here waving. So Kyle Kingma and Ellen McPhadden, and they're going to join us here in a minute. But first, we're going to talk with EllenMarie.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun show. So EllenMarie is the Assistant Dean, Undergraduate Business Education at the School of Business Administration. And the Hyperion Council, really, it stems from the old adage that to whom much is given, much is expected. This organization was founded in 2002. You're in your 16th?
Yep,
okay,
that's right.
There we go.
Right.
And really, the underlying ethos serves as the thread and motivation binding the student members from all business disciplines into one singular objective, which is to actively share their knowledge and best business practices that they've acquired at the School of Business Administration with the world.
Yeah, that's right. So the real idea stems from the fact that we have an opportunity to really educate future business leaders in not just best practices, but a really strong ethical, moral compass on how business impacts the world, right? The decisions that real business people make actually impact every single community they touch. And so the Hyperion Council is all about these first generation undergrads, or these undergrads who are starting their business career, and helping them take what they've learned from the classroom and actually transition that information into communities, particularly that are at risk. So we're really proud of the fact that really smart kids, you got to be smart to play in our game.
Yeah.
And that the notion of being able to take your marketing and your finance and your accounting content that you're basically learning in the classroom, and then you get to help women entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs in places as far afield as Santo Domingo or Jamaica or right around our block, Overtown, that you get to actually impact young entrepreneurs and help them change the way they do business. They go from simply transacting to actually building wealth. And you can't do that if you don't actually know and understand the ways in which your methodology, your approach to business has to be about doing the small things right and doing and using the assets that you gain either from technology, human capital, community engagement, how all those three things work together to actually build strong societies and basically stronger communities. So these young people, they're not just sort of, doing community service for ha-ha's sake. They really understand that the conversations that they begin, the actions in which they engage, little by little, this is not some grandiose, ooh la la, we're changing the world. No, this is about the hard work of changing behaviors so that people who will never, ever have the chances and opportunities that these young ones have, that they get a small window, a small taste of what it means to actually change your life with the behaviors that you engage in. Sorry, long-winded answer.
No, that's great. There's so much happening right here in Miami. And you mentioned something that we're passionate about, which is inclusion. There's so much happening in the innovation community, and there's so much on the horizon, I think. Right. I mean, we can feel it here at Emerge Americas.
Absolutely.
But we can't get to where we're headed if we don't include everyone, right?
Right. And what's extraordinary, right, is that what's amazing about Miami is we think about inclusion across a very broad spectrum. And so my students, when we go to communities that we consider at risk, they're often perceived with mistrust early on because in some way, shape, or form, the community in which we're engaged, they don't actually know what the motive is. Why would these smart, talented kids come into my neighborhood and want to do something with me, not for me? And so the ways in which we engage with women, with young people, with men who are indigent, or just principally engaging them in them owning their content, their ideas, and simply doing differently so that when we leave, they know what to do, as opposed to we land, we make pretty, we make nice pictures, and oh, by the way, nothing has changed. So I think that's the gift, that Hyperion has simply been this opportunity for these young people who basically, when I'm gone to Tahiti for my rest, they will pick up the mantle, and they will have had an opportunity to say, when I was a university student, yes, I had great academic opportunities, I engaged with faculty, but you know what? I also went into Overtown and I worked with Mrs. Moore's Bakery. And Mrs. Moore's Bakery now has a great menu because we helped her figure out what the right language was. It's those kinds of simple things that matter, because if you don't know what marketing terms to use, you don't know how to actually create long-term best customer practices, you pretty much fly by the night and you're just faking it rather than actually making it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, so there's this current and kind of next generation of entrepreneurs and future business owners that are coming up, and they seem to understand that sense of responsibility. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that what you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. And in 2002, it was practically heresy, right? I'm from the go-go 80s where Gordon Gekko was an icon.
Yeah.
And so people thought, why would smart university students in business want to, quote unquote, make the community different? We were all about service, and it wasn't about service. It was about helping our business leaders understand that unless all communities were flying with them, then no community was ultimately going to be flying with them. And so, our kids come from China. Our kids come from, Chicago, Michigan. I've got some folks from Toronto. I mean, this is not something that is not inorganic, because I learn from them every day, and you'll hear what they did to actually sort of make this experience their own. But they all understand where I'm coming from with this. The developing world is simply developing at a different pace. Mm-hmm. It is not perpetually developing. Mm-hmm. And so the choices that our business leaders make in this country impact not just the U.S., but other communities far afield. And if we're already educating our young business leaders to understand that sound business practices mean that you do well as you do good, then guess what? We all win.
Yeah, I love that idea. So there's something you said a couple minutes ago, and you talk about the idea, if you start a business, you want to make money, and I mean, kind of the dream is to get rich, right?
Absolutely.
When you start a business.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about this idea of building wealth, and I'm wondering if you're talking about a certain way that you can do things that will build wealth that doesn't just serve you, but serves everyone else around you, like you said.
Yeah.
Kind of these business practices. What characterizes those sorts of things?
So let me give a simple example. If you go into even our local communities or the developing world, and these are people who are quote unquote engaged, and I use this very loosely, in business, what you find, for example, is that they will use the same till, the same place that they store their cash. They pay their light bill, they pay their children's school fees, and oh, by the way, that vendor that I bought stuff from, their money's going to come from there too. There's not this idea that the business is separate from your personal wealth. And so just that simple notion of understanding how to manage your cash as well as how to manage your personal asset versus your business assets, that is foreign stuff. And as a result, it's the reason why these communities stay in one simple status rather than complex status. And to build wealth, you have to have practices that help you be forward thinking and build a foundation that literally works for you as well as with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was the innovation, right? That the innovation was all about getting them to do more than simply want to play in our fabulous community of Miami, but also be a part of recreating Miami as a place of idea and ideals.
EllenMarie, this has been a great start to the conversation. I can't
Awesome.
wait to meet
Yeah, my kids.
Ellen and Kyle. Yeah, let's do this. Let's
Thanks
do this.
so much for your interest and your love.
Thank you.
All right, so joining us right now, we have the incoming Secretary General for the Hyperion Council, Kyle Kingma. So Kyle, welcome to Innovation City. We're glad to have you.
Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome to Miami. I'm sure it's nicer than a few other parts of the world.
Totally. So you handle like the international aspects, or you've been involved in some of the international aspects of the Hyperion Council. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so like Ellen said, we do more work than just here in Miami. And last year we actually had the opportunity to go to Lima, Peru, to use some of our business practices to help a few different organizations, but one in particular was a startup called Spray Wash. So we had the opportunity to go in. When we got there originally, we met the people that started it, heard their background story, and right away we found out that we really needed to help them figure out how they were going to take this great idea and turn it into reality. So to tell you a little bit about Spray Wash, is they were a startup that washes cars without using water. It sounds kind of crazy, but we were able to actually go watch them wash a car, and they use different, I'd say, formulas, kind of like a Windex or a spray, and they spray the car and clean the car with towels instead of water. And this is important for two reasons. Peru actually suffers from overusage of water and water not being in enough areas. I think it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, 7 million people do not have enough access to clean water. So by cleaning cars without water, they're able to save that water. But what also Spray Wash was able to do is they were able to use their business practice and their technology not to be a disruptor where people were losing jobs, but to be able to take these people who were typically on the streets and washing cars, but bring them into a university parking lot, or to be able to send them to a client's house so that they could clean cars more efficiently and have a better living because of it.
So how do you find a business like that?
Yeah, so through the Miami Business School, we have multiple contacts with business leaders throughout Latin America. So what the Hyperion Council does every year is we do a project like this. So by cultivating these relationships, we've been able to open doors and open more doors because of that led us to startups and other businesses like this.
Do businesses apply, or do you approach them?
It's kind of I'd say half and half. So typically, because of our relationships, we know someone who's on the ground in Costa Rica or Jamaica or Peru. And typically where we get these relationships from is they know someone else, that a business or a startup that needs help. So whether they apply to that middle person we have on the ground or reach out, it varies, but we're able to meet kind of through the relationships that Hyperion has built over the past 17 years almost.
So what kind of impact have you seen, like, for instance, with the car washing? What kind of impact have you seen with the people involved with that business and kind of that community from that?
Yeah, so where you really see the most impact is in the workers themselves. So we're at a tech conference. I don't want to speak too loudly, but sometimes tech is seen as a bad thing. And this is when it's almost too disruptive, where people lose their jobs because of it. And we hear this a lot in media about how technology is making things worse for some people.
Yeah, or automation is going to take all our jobs.
Exactly. I know there was a robot here earlier that probably is a little bit smarter than me, so hopefully that doesn't happen too quickly. But what I was saying was where we see the impact is we're able to use technology and this innovative startup in an emerging country to not hurt the working class, but to empower them. And this is very important because typically these workers would be on their own, walking the streets asking people to wash their cars, which is very inefficient. They're not able to market the way a typical business would. But by having Spray Wash bring all these, and they actually hired these people who walk the streets and cleaning cars, they're able to empower them by giving them a clear source of revenue because of clients, and also be able to centralize how people got their car washes, which overall made it more effective for a moneymaker and for just more positive business for these working class people.
That's awesome. So tell me about the personal impact that these experiences have had on you.
A tremendous impact. So I'm actually originally from Michigan, a small town, Spring Lake, Michigan, outside of Grand Rapids, and I always had a desire to learn more about the world, and in particular the Latin American world. And besides in high school going on vacation here and there, I never got the in-depth analysis and experience that the Hyperion Council has been able to provide for me. And what it's done at a personal level is just expanded the way I think and expanded the reason I do things. And I say expanded the way I think is because when we go into a different culture that has a different mindset, that has different issues than what we deal with here in the States, you're able to kind of figure out how you got to tackle these issues in a different manner. One thing we ran into with Peru is the high level of, it's called an informal economy, where all the money isn't under the table, but it's not being kept track of. So whether it's from a revenue aspect or something like that, there is no system of keeping track of it. So by learning things like that and being able to think how to work around it, I was able to really improve not only my education, but the way I think about business. And then on a personal aspect of how I care about things is I'm able to get this worldwide worldview, you can call it, and seeing that there are issues that are specific in each location. And instead of looking at the world from a very Western approach, I've been able to grow where I see that problems have different solutions, and that's an okay thing, which in different parts of Western culture isn't the same.
Well, that sounds great. When you graduate next year?
Yeah, I got one more year, so I'm not wanting it to go quick. I'm definitely
Awesome.
loving it down here at the Miami Business School.
Well, best wishes to you in your future. Can't wait to talk to Ellen.
Yep, no, she
Nice talking
should
to
have
you,
some
man.
good things, but I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice to meet you, Kyle. Thank you. We are here with Ellen McPhadden. She is the outgoing Secretary General for the Hyperion Council. Thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell me how you got involved with Hyperion Council to start with.
So I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I joined the Hyperion Council after, I guess, my 1-year anniversary being at UM. And during my first year, I did really well at school. I joined the business fraternity. I had all these good social friends, but the one thing I was missing was kind of impacting the community. It's just something that I wasn't really involved in. So I met another Canadian girl who expressed having really, really similar feelings, and so she just kind of pulled me into the council, and the rest is history. So.
Wow.
So tell me about your most favorite project that you've worked on in your time as Secretary General.
Yeah, so right when I joined my sophomore year, we had a new project come in, which was basically a marketplace for people in the food industry in in Coconut Grove, West Grove.
Okay.
So whether they have like a small cupcake place or a small rib place, that it's kind of a place for them to sell their goods, but also a place for them to learn good business practices. So that project kind of rolled into our lap right as I was joining, and I'm obsessed with food. I have a food Instagram. It's just something I love to do. So I volunteered to be the head of that entire project, and it was like my first week in the council. So I took that on, and I've been the head of it ever since, and I'm sad to hand it off to someone in May. But yeah, it's been like a huge part of my life.
So how do students get involved with Hyperion Council?
So it's like this weird organization where people kind of hear about it through other people. You have to apply. It's like a really, really strict application process, but it's kind of not really an underground organization. Like, people know we exist, but most of our meetings are very private, and the projects that we do are off campus, so people don't really hear about us on campus. But you just kind of know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and then we kind of just pull in the same amazing group of people who are involved in other things on campus. So it's like a full-on application, an essay, an interview. It's pretty difficult.
And is there a certain time of year, or is it an open application
In the fall, yeah.
process?
So it's about
Okay.
the entire fall semester is like the whole recruitment, and then we initiate right in January when we come back from Christmas. So.
Cool.
So I'm curious, with that application process, what is it that you're looking for in an applicant?
So we love to see people who are involved in the School of Business and University of Miami, because a lot of our projects, as Kyle mentioned, come from connections that we know. So we love people who are already involved. We look for people who are really socially driven and want to do good. We're not just here to make money. We are here to make money, but we're also here to help other people make money. So just people who are really socially driven, and then people who have a passion for something. So I came in with a passion for food and got really lucky that I got a food project. So we just want to see people who really want to make a change, but are also really passionate about the projects that we do.
So tell me about the impact that being involved in this organization has had on your life.
Okay, so on me personally, I think it's really fulfilling. So we meet twice a week, and then I have another meeting with the market specifically. It's a huge time commitment, but I love every single second of it. So I think my college career is going to end on a good note because I feel really fulfilled with what I've done. I also think it's taught me just so many business skills that I wouldn't have gotten from class. So Miss McPhillip mentioned that we bring in stuff that we learn from school and apply it, but I just think I've learned so much beyond what we learn in the classroom, just like how to not, so it's one thing to just take what you learn, take accounting practices and be like, here you go, to a group of people who don't even know what accounting is. So just learning those business principles, but also being able to just be like a good person and kind of like learn those soft skills of how to kind of translate those hard business skills into someone who has literally no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, I think it's developed me greatly as a person.
What do you feel like is the biggest challenge for someone who's getting involved in Hyperion Council?
I would say it's just that, so the cultural differences. So we went to Peru, and Kyle was mentioning kind of how to help the business, or how he thinks that we made an impact on the business. So when we came into the Peru project, we were trying to play with the idea of how the overarching organization can make money from each individual car washer. So obviously you think, okay, well, a percentage of the revenue that they made that day. So we were like, obviously that's what you do, take 10% of what they made. And then we learned in Peru that like, I think it's like between 70 and 80% of the economy is like unofficial or undocumented. So you can't say, give me 10% when you don't even know what they're making. And that's just like, you would think an American, or I'm Canadian, but you would think an organization like us would come in and say, well, this is what you have to do. You have to take a percentage, and that's normal, and that's the way that the world's going. But we had to kind of change that and say, well, you don't even know what they're making, so you can't, you know what I mean? So we had to kind of shape our business practices into their community and their culture. So I think that's been a huge thing for me, is just kind of, that's a big thing that people find difficult, is having to learn about the culture and then apply our practices to that culture itself. So it's difficult, but it's fun.
Well, this has been an amazing, like just a half hour ago, I had no idea, what you guys did, and now I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So tell us how people can get in touch with, like online, and learn more about Hyperion Council.
Yeah, so we are big on Instagram. It's kind of funny because we're seen as like not really a nerdy organization, but we're kind of just overachievers and always going. So people are like, you have an Instagram? Like, what do you even post on that Instagram? So we're big on Instagram, which is at Hyperion. And then we have a website as well, which goes through all of our current projects, and then also has a list of our current Titans. They're called, they're members, we call them Titans. And so that is, I believe, HyperionCouncil.com, and those are our two biggest places. So
awesome.
So you can apply through there as well if you go to UM and you're interested. So we usually take sophomores or juniors. So
awesome. Ellen, it was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed learning about Hyperion Council today, so thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
It was nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in Miami, visit us on Thursday nights. Details are at venturecafemiami.org. And be sure to connect with us on social at We Are Slam and at Venture Cafe MIA. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win.